G'day footy fans and welcome to Boothy's AFL Fantasy Dream Team podcast. Today I'm actually looking at the Rucks. Well, we saw four teams playing tonight and four teams playing last night in the JLT, their third match. And at the moment this is what I've come up with for you. So the Rucks you could choose from in my view would be the following. A combination such as Grundy and Martin on the left hand side there is one idea, and it's important to consider the bye rounds as well, I believe. So, for example, Grundy has a bye in round 13 on the left there. Martin has a bye in round 11, as I've got listed below in the orange highlighter. And then, of course, you need two on the bench to make up your four ruckmen. Cameron is dual position, the Sydney guy, and although he may not play round one, he could well come into the season early on, and he's a 21-year-old mature age, he might actually be older than that, I think, mature age ruckman who's come into the club. So he's a 1-5-6 dual position player, so it's worth having him on there, even if he's not in round one, in my opinion, because he can move to the forward line if necessary, and he only costs $6,000 more than bargain basement. Bruce looks quite good for the Kangaroos, may not play round one either if Benny Brown comes back in, possibly, with Goldstein, and Benny Brown possibly sharing the ruck roles. But again, Bruce may well come in early in the season if there's an injury or Ben Brown's not quite right for round one and, gets through the round, but then they pick Bruce for round two. So again, it's probably worth putting him in on the bench. Hopefully you won't need to use your bench in the rucks, and if they do play, they'll make a little bit of money, provided they score at least 25 points. So that's one idea. Another idea would be Gawn and Jacobs together, for example. Now, Gawn has a bye in round 11, Jacobs in round 13, and Cameron and Bruce there as well in team 2. The third team I've got there as an example would be Goldstein in position 1 at 582, a bye in round 12. Not many teams have byes in round 12, only the four teams have byes in round 12. And then Cruiser, who got 100 tonight. And I've been talking Cruiser up with my friends recently because if you don't know, Phillips, who played 16 games last year for Carlton as the second ruck, he's on the long-term injury list at the moment. And Garinge is also an option for Carlton as a ruckman. Also did an injury a couple of weeks back and hasn't played. He's only played like one quarter of JLT because of his injury as well. And so they are relying on pretty much Cruiser rucking, more than 3/4 of the time. And he's only been chopped out by Cass Bolt or, occasionally other players around the place. But he pretty much rucks, 80-90% of the game. So therefore he's good for possibly 100 average throughout the first few rounds. So he could be good value at 431 and he's a buy in round 11. Now, the team I've highlighted on the right-hand side is the team that I'm considering going with at the moment for my team when I have to make my decision over the next couple of weeks. So the team that I'm considering at the moment is as follows. Grundy from Collingwood, because he's 22 years of age, is primed to keep improving. He's averaging 100 now and he looks fantastic, provided he gets through the game after he had a scare at training during the week, but I think he's okay. Nankervis from Richmond, who's the sole ruckman on the back of Hampson going onto the long-term injury list at Richmond just this week, and Marich getting dropped for JLT the last game because he's just at the point of his career where he's not going to be that effective and he probably can't go forward and do much. So Nankervis could well average 90 this year as a sole ruck at Richmond, and he's going to be rucking 90% of the time also because there's only players like Griffiths. They don't even have Vickery anymore. So Nankervis to me at 365, a round 12 bye and a ruck forward as well, he's a perfect scenario for your second ruck in my opinion. And the money you save by having Nankervis and not a more expensive second ruck, you can then spend on having a deeper forward line or a deeper midfield by having one extra decent player. So Cameron and Bruce there as well for me. And I've got the proviso in that highlighted team on the right there of having Boyd in the forward line. And Boyd is also a forward ruck from the Bulldogs. And again, he also is doing the majority of the ruck work because Campbell is not right at the moment and probably won't play round one from what they're saying. Tim English doesn't look ready and didn't get on the park, or might have got on the park for a quarter the other day, if that. And the other ruckman, Roughhead, who played in the grand final in the Premiership, he's also out for about 6 weeks. So it looks like Tom Boyd will do all the ruck work in their first round game against Collingwood, against Grundy, ironically. But he did get 27 hitouts the other day, Boyd, and did get a little knock, but he should be right. He's got 2 weeks to recover. So on the right-hand side, I've got their average from last season. Grundy averaged 100, and Nankervis 69, but he was always the second ruck at Sydney, so didn't get a good opportunity. Cameron's a 21-year-old recruit, same with Bruce now. He's been around North Melbourne for a little while, but they're both 21 and a half, so a good age to start playing well if they get in. And Boyd only averaged 57 last year, but remembering he was a key forward, and then in the final series probably averaged about 80, and his grand final was, in the mid-90s. So with being the sole ruck, he could well get his score up to 85. Nankervis, as I mentioned, 85 or 90. So they're really good value players. And then, of course, Grundy's a buy in round 13, Nankervis in round 12, and Boyd actually round 11. So when it comes to those rounds, and you can chop and change, you will always have 2 ruckmen, as it were, and the other one will be having a bye. And of course, because you can chop and change between Cameron, Nankervis and Boyd, between Ford and Ruck, you'll then make sure you have 2 decent ruckmen for all your bye rounds. You don't have to get rid of them. You can hang on to them and they can just sit on the bench for those rounds. So that's worth considering. So I've suggested up the top, and the other one I wanted to mention was Billy Longer. Now he's only 281, but of course he's not in JLT3 because they're going with Hickey. Now if Hickey gets injured or doesn't play well, and Longer does play in round 1, he's a 281 ruckman, and he did average 66 2 years ago. He's priced much, much, much lower than that. He's priced at 50 odd. So he could be a really good option Longer if Hickey's not there. So if Hickey got injured or whatever, and he was in round 1 because he's so cheap. So just think about that if that occurs. Now at the top there, there's 9 or 10 teams represented by those players I mentioned you could choose from. 9 or 10 teams if you include Longer 10. And I said down below, don't consider Port Ruckman, GWS, Sydney, West Coast, Freo or Essendon. Zach Smith from Geelong I talked up earlier, but with Stanley there and the way he looked the other day, I wouldn't pick him. And Jared Witts from Gold Coast looks okay. He got a lot of hit-outs, but he did tire and drop some marks and struggled a bit late. So is fitness a key for him because he hasn't played a lot of footy in the last few years at Collingwood, and he's also got a buy in round 9 early on. So have a think about that. The team on the right highlight is what I'd go with for round 1 at the moment. Save you some money, and I look forward to talking tomorrow night about midfielders, which will be interesting. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, and please tell your friends. Bye for now.